Hello, I'm Mandi McLeod. Welcome to Straight Talk. In this program, we ask why the Waikato District Council wants to review its livestock movements bylaw. Are they using this as a growth strategy and to raise revenue? Farm IQ, the joint venture initiative aimed at bringing a market-led consumer needs approach to the meat industry. We talk to the man at the top and ask why the organisation was set up and what they hope to achieve. Māori-owned milk processor Miraka aims to be functional by August the 1st. The plant will be similar in size to Open Country Cheese and Synlait. The question is, do we need more independent milk processors? Joining me today is Collier CEO of Farm IQ Systems, and Wendy Clark, dairy farmer and president of Auckland Federated Farmers. Welcome.
Morning.
Wendy, the news of this proposed review broke in the Straight Furrow last week. What are the real issues here?
Well, the South Franklin farmers have recently come under the jurisdiction of the Waikato District Council, who were already legally had to undertake a review of their livestock movement bylaw. They are hell-bent on revoking Franklin's bylaw and bringing everybody under their rules, which would be fine, except that their rules are draconian.
So just explain a little bit more about what the issue is like. Is it for farmers who want to move their stock from block to block, and from dairy farmers who are crossing the road regularly?
Yes, it's both. It's both. It's regular dairy crosses, and it's other stock owners who just want to move on a regular basis up to other blocks that they might own or grazing that they may have acquired.
So it's currently in the Waikato district, they get a permit which is free?
It's one hoof on the road, requires a permit, and it was introduced as a free permit system, and this time round they are planning to introduce some very expensive fees that will be collected on a cost recovery basis.
So it really sounds quite draconian, the whole permit basis, Collier, doesn't it, to you? Just seems...
Well, I mean, I think agriculture is heading more towards permits, but I mean, it's got to be practical and not so expensive that it stops business, and it sounds like this might be heading towards the rather expensive end of things. Wendy,
you were saying that one hoof on the road. How are they going to measure this?
They are zealously out there looking for non-compliance. They hope that people will fess up and come in and apply for a permit, and then they in turn plan to come out, no matter whether you're 100 kilometres away from Ngaruawahia, and look at the site and how you propose to do your movement, and basically tell you how to do the job that you've been doing forever and a day.
Collier, how complicated is that? I can see you looking quite perplexed about this.
Sounds truly amazing. I mean, from a farmer's perspective, from a regulatory perspective, I would have thought it would be outcomes that are important, not how you actually go about doing the job. And so if your stock are moving across the road safely, that's the bit that's important, not that it actually, they tell you how to go about doing it.
I mean, it's not that difficult, is it? I mean, a cow gets up, she walks across the road. How else can you actually do it?
Well, some people are probably better at it than others, to be fair. Having come across stock wandering further than they should, but yeah, most people are practical, no trouble. Yeah.
I guess what you're trying to say, Wendy, is what they're trying to do is make sure that people do it legally, that they are monitored stock crossings, that people aren't just putting a tape up across the road and letting their cows go, and that's probably what they're looking at, is to make sure that you've got the systems in place at a gate on each side, and the cows can cross safely. It's not going to interrupt people flow or promote danger. But I mean, has either of you got any stats of how many accidents have been caused?
Yes, there have been no accidents involving drover-controlled stock on roads in the past 5 years in either Franklin or Waikato. So,
is it just revenue raising? It sounds like that to me. When I hear the word permit, I actually think of Russia. And I think about those very controlled, dictator-led systems where you've got to have a permit to do things.
Yeah, there's a place for a permit system when somebody falls outside the normal criteria. So no question about that. We expect people to be moving their stock in a safe manner. Obviously, stock owners seem to have a pretty good record, an excellent record, by comparison to other road users. Roading departments do have a reputation for wanting to control everything that happens on their roads, and I think that this is just a case of bureaucracy gone crazy.
Now, speaking of bureaucracy gone crazy, Collier, tell us about Farm IQ Systems. It's a joint venture between Silver Fern Farms, PGG Wrightson's, and Landcorp.
And TrueTest.
And TrueTest. So what are you trying to do? You're trying to get the consumers to lead marketing of beef meat products?
Yep. Some time ago, Saltfern Farms and Landcorp and Wrightson's and obviously TrueTest saw an opportunity out there to actually get closer to the consumer, really, because at the end of the day, if the consumer doesn't get a great eating experience, we know we're in trouble. And so if you take that chain back down to the farm, basically you've got things that are moving and processing, work that's going on, excuse me, in databases underpinning, so all information flows, work that's going on in genomics, and then work that's going on straight on farm to improve productivity, but in a way that actually gives the consumer a great eating experience.
So thinking about what we were talking about last week with the glue in meat.
The glue in meat, yes.
This is going to be basically saying, if I eat a steak and I'm not happy with it, I can complain and find out where it came from and whether there's...
In the long run, that's dead right. At the moment, it's an R&D program, and so we're building it from the ground up. The government, through the Primary Growth Partnership, wasn't about to fund something that was already in existence, so it's getting built from the ground up. But the idea in the end is a consumer in retail in the UK can actually follow their product back to the farm in New Zealand. It might be a few years away, but that is the objective. Glue in meat, well, for catering purposes, possibly there's scope for that in a very specific niche. Not necessarily in Farm IQ, but I think we're quite quick to
wash your mouth out, Collier Isaacs. Glue in meat, it just shouldn't be there.
Glue in meat. I think it was from as far as I recall, it's just a protein that's formed in meat anyway, and it's just used to bind pieces of meat together. I wouldn't say I was really keen on it, but I know that people can get a little hysterical about some of these things without perhaps great need.
Talking about the processing end, Miraka, which is a new dairy processing plant going to be set up just outside Taupo, is due to be opened on August the 1st. Wendy, I'm going to start with you first. Do we really need more independent milk processors in New Zealand?
We probably don't need them, but there's no problem having them. So I'm pretty relaxed about anybody that wants to take the big risk of trying to break into what is a really tough industry. Well, good on them.
So you don't see it as needing competition for Fonterra? I mean, we're talking about, I guess, 8 million tonnes. It's probably not a huge there. And my understanding is that they're targeting Vietnam, who's a partner of Miraka, that they're using geothermal activity. So it may actually be quite a smart move. Collier, having come from Landcorp, is this something that, you think that more larger farmers may be looking to get involved in?
Potentially, but I guess I come from more of a meat industry background, and you look at the fragmentation in the meat industry and you go, well, if this was the, dare I say it, a slippery slope to having a very fragmented dairy industry, I'd hate to see it go the same way as the meat industry. Having said, I'm quite sure it's not, and Fonterra, as far as I'm aware, is still over 90% of the business. So that probably doesn't present a great risk now. It's just, if this keeps going, nibble by nibble, where does that actually get us in the longer run?
And is that something that concerns you, that nibble by nibble where?
Well, how do you know quite where that point is? But the nibble by nibble, the old saying, boil a frog, they don't notice because they're getting boiled slowly, or death by a thousand cuts. You sort of wonder, just where and how you come up with some sort of system which says enough is enough without actually taking the thing to the wall.
Very good. Thanks to you. We come back after the break and we're going to look at raw milk sales. A slick marketing move or a recipe for sick consumers? Why are some farmers feeling like they have to market their own milk? And when it comes to crops, is canola for biofuel a viable option for farmers? And what's up for South Taranaki farmers under the new Taranaki Regional Council's costly and controversial water scheme? All this and more coming up next. Welcome back to Straight Talk. According to Country 99 TV News, growing canola for biofuels is becoming the next big thing for cropping farmers. The tap-rooted crop makes it an ideal partner in the cropping rotation. Its seed is pressed for animal feed cake, whilst the oil is used for cooking and making biofuels. Collier, do you think this gives farmers growing canola a lot more options?
I would have thought so. Like anything, though, you've got to look at it and say, well, what's the market actually want in the longer term? And is biofuels going to be where it heads, or is it very efficient to grow a crop for biofuels? Are there smarter ways through waste? So, but at the end of the day, it is the open market, and if it provides sound returns, then I guess they've got to give it a go.
Wendy, a United Nations report in 2009 indicated that to fill one tank full of gas to fuel an SUV required the same amount of corn to feed a family for 1 year. Do you think this argument about canola is more feed versus fuel?
Well, that statistic you just gave us is fairly damning. As far as the farmer's concerned, he's not really interested in anything but whether or not it gives him a return. So it's not an economic question that you're asking me, it's a political one. And do we in 2050, when we've got 9 billion people on the planet, want to be making that kind of decision to take out land that might be better used for food production? If the world goes hungry, there's going to be a bit of social strife and warfare.
So Collier, do you think, with what Wendy said, that this whole biofuels argument is more around a feel-good factor for governments to be seen to be doing something with alternative fuels? Or is there a legitimate argument around using some of these potentially human food crops?
I think in the end it's technology will probably save us from ourselves, and at the moment the governments are trying to lean on everybody to do something about being more green, I suppose, and certainly reducing fossil fuel use and greenhouse gas warming. So I think some of the stuff they can see they can do now could move on in time. Your point exactly, when it came down to feeding the world, someone will quite quickly work out that when it even comes to a price at a farm, if they're going to pay more for food than they will for biodiesel, the biodiesel will come to a halt very quickly.
And that's interesting, because what we're actually seeing is the price of biofuels pushing up the cost of food at the moment.
Yeah.
Wendy, as a dairy farmer, how do you feel about the fact that, and we use Fonterra as an example, they will let their suppliers sell up to 5 litres in an individual sale as raw milk? Given the potential for E. coli to be in raw milk, do you think that there is, dare I say, a potential to damage the brand of milk by people buying milk that may not be clean?
I think as long as there's no confusion in the public mind that raw milk is anything to do with pasteurised milk, as long as people understand the differences, I don't think it's a threat to the integrity of normal mainstream, processed milk.
Do you think they do understand that?
Well, the other thing you have to remember is, so choice is ultimate. There have been farming families bringing up their children on milk from the cow for hundreds of years, and 99% of the time it's safe. So while there's sectors of the community that probably are more at risk, like the elderly, that you wouldn't recommend raw milk to, for everybody else, I think it's up to an individual choice.
Collier, I went on to their Facebook page, which they have, and I was quite, dare I say, concerned to see the number of people requesting raw milk and it being sold with come to me, bring your own container. Or one woman who asked if someone would put it into Snaplock bags and freeze it and send it to her as pet milk.
Okay, to circumvent the regulations, I guess, in that case. Yeah. Well, it comes back to I think we just both made the point. I mean, they've got to understand, and even though it might be very, very small risk, they do need to understand the risks of what they're actually doing, consuming raw milk. You made the point before, do consumers understand the difference between pasteurised and raw milk? No, I mean, milk comes out of the supermarket, I guess, and it's pasteurised and no one thinks about it. So I guess there is a slight risk in it, and I think that the Facebook page, they should be genuine about putting those risks there, so that people that are going there for various reasons actually understand what the ups and downs might be.
Yeah, because I think that's probably, you've hit the nail on the head. Nowhere did I see anything that said, if you bring your own container, make sure it's clean, triple rinse it or anything, or anyone commenting on the danger of freezing and couriering milk. And I think that was probably the bit that really got to me. And I know that consumers have to have choice, but how much do our consumers fully understand that it's not just the milk, it's how it's transported, it's all of those things?
And of course there's a bit of a difference between the farmer taking a day's supply of milk straight from the cow up to the fridge for his own personal use, and somebody else coming and transporting that home and maybe taking a couple of hours to get home. So it's not something that I would recommend. But I guess I've got a philosophy of live and let live until some dire consequences occur.
Well, let's hope that I have, because I do feel a bit of a hypocrite when I sit here, because I actually do go down to the dairy and and get our milk and bring it home. But you're right, it is only for a day or 2 days. It's a 5-minute journey, and as soon as it starts to sort of smell a bit, it's gone.
Smell a bit.
Now, I want to talk to you about South Taranaki farmers. Recently, I just heard that some South Taranaki farmers are potentially going to be forced to pay $33,000 for stock water under the new proposed changes. Now, this is because they take water from the town supply, and the South Taranaki Regional Council want to upgrade their facilities and are using farmers as the way to pay for this. Do you think it's fair, Wendy?
The farmers are going to make a business decision. If they're going to spend $33,000 a year on water, they're going to look for an alternative option.
Which is what they're saying they'll do.
Yep. So they've got that choice, and the council's got the choice of weighing up whether or not losing those farmers who help to spread the costs over the entire community. And if they go, what will that mean for the urban community that will be left paying the bill between a reduced number? So there could be a win-win situation here. Taranaki farmers are suggesting that perhaps they should be paying for the water on a rural basis, like many others who are not involved in this urban town supply situation. They pay a reduced rate. If that were to happen, then the farmers would probably stay in the system, and the burden would be shared. If council don't think that's a viable option, those Taranaki farmers will leave the urban scheme, and they will find alternative methods of getting water.
This brings me to a larger question. Is there enough, Collier, consultation between farmers and district councils?
Interesting question, because the district councils quite often say they do a whole heap of consultation. It's just that I'm not sure that they're necessarily good at getting in front of farmers in the way that makes it easy to have a conversation. You get a long document that takes about 3 days to read. So perhaps there's something to be worked through in that side of things. It's an interesting case with the water though. Going on to a slightly different tangent, I know that dairy farming and looking inside of Landcorp, looking at what we could do to improve the efficiency of water use. You were talking about economics. There may be potential for these guys to use less water as well, and so it may be a bit of win-win in that regard. But at least if you're putting probably closer to market price on something in some respects, it makes people think much more about these points. Can I do things more efficiently or not? And perhaps that's if you're going to phase it in or really understand the cost benefit to the overall community, perhaps that is a better thing.
Great. Thanks. Coming up after the break, we ask Wendy and Collier what's got them thinking this week. Will it be a rant or will it be a rave? Stay with us. Welcome back to Straight Talk. It's time now for our weekly rant or rave. Wendy.
Mandy, I've already had a bit of a rant about the Waikato District Council, so now I'm going to have a rave about the new Auckland Council for taking the opposite sort of approach. They've been doing some really good things. The first thing is that they've welcomed the rural districts into the new Auckland region, and they've encouraged those rural districts to retain their individual identities. They've been thoroughly professional so far, and they have been very consultative. And so it gives you a glimpse of the potential that Auckland has got to possibly lead the nation into a new era of local government reform.
Isn't that fantastic, and possibly not one that we would link with Auckland leading rural sector, rural-urban sector consultation?
Yes, but they are.
That's fantastic.
Now, it's early days, and maybe next year, after the rates have have been sorted out, I might not be as complimentary, but at the moment, I can't fault them.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. Collier.
Right. I was just sitting here, listening to the dairy and sort of the sheep beef conversation, and it always strikes me, I guess, is that the sheep and beef farmers don't seem to be quite so cooperative with each other, or perhaps in their overall value chain, and that's something Farm IQ are trying to do something about, is the dairy guys. And I think the sheep and beef sector's got a lot of opportunity to go further if it actually did work in a sort of a more of a, I guess, a collegial fashion, rather than being quite sort of cut and thrust and very focused on farm gate returns.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think there is less collegiality there?
I think it probably just came out of industry structures. The dairy industry, go back to the 30s, I think essentially was broke, and they set up the dairy board and had a single desk. And I guess at that point there wasn't too much competition between farmers, and everybody sort of got together and said, how can we make this whole thing go faster? Whereas the sheep and beef sector, given its structure, which has been competitive for forever and a day, that sort of goes right through to the way that everybody operates in the chain, which, given our scale in the world, given the opportunities in the marketplace, actually that behaviour is not really going to get us to where we need to go.
Well, it's not really a rant or a rave. I have seen the weather over the last week, and driving up from Te Awamutu last night and having no power. I guess my real concern is now for those farmers that are going to have to replant their grass, that are possibly picking kiwi fruit or other crops, and I'm really concerned about how this latest weather is going to impact them. And probably my rave is that so far they have been quite stoic, and there has been no whinges coming out about it. They're obviously just getting on and doing it, and I think that's really amazing that they've not letting the weather get to them yet.
Well, I think farmers, I live in a rural community in the Wairarapa, and either rains or it doesn't rain or something's going on, and you've got to be really focused on how you just manage all those risks. And I guess coming back to Farm IQ, I guess as well, we're trying to work out how you can set up systems so that you can optimise your value chain, so you can manage those sort of risks. You can't manage a hailstorm apart from insurance possibly, or a really high wind event, but just how you can set up your farming system, probably more end to end, so you can manage some of those risks is where we're at.
It's been a bit of a shocker really with the weather, hasn't it, so far? Actually, I want to have a rave. Actually, I do. I have a rave. And that's for those winners of the Māori Farm of the Year, which are just being announced this week, I believe. Congratulations to them all. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to show that despite the report that came out around the lack of Māori farm performance, that they can still get out there and have an award and celebrate those farmers that are doing an amazing job and have field days. And I hope that everyone's getting along to those field days, because I think we've got a lot to learn from farming, from other people, as we've got to do from other farmers, I guess, and as other professionals.
I think Maori farmers, historically, given the nature of a lot of the country, they had got a bad rap. There was no reason why they couldn't perform as well as anybody else. And you're right, get out there and do the job really well, and prove the point for dairy farmers generally, not just Maori dairy farmers.
It's got the field days coming up. Collier, are you going to be there in force?
Not planning to at this stage, although I think I'll spend a few days there. Because of the partners involved in this, if they're present there, we'll probably be involved, support them as well. But yeah, I spent quite a few days in rather chilly mystery creek at various points over my career, and it's always worth going, but not staying for forever a day there.
Because we're going to be there. Wendy, are you going to be down there?
It's possible that I will be down there, yes.
You're going to make sure you bring your fur coat, because it's, as you said, it is often cold down there. Well, we both will be looking forward to catching up with both of you down there. Actually, Wendy, just one point before I go. I just wanted to ask you, we've seen a lot of empty cows this year. Has it been your experience, that's down in the Waikato, has it been your experience up in Auckland North?
There's been a bit of an increase in empty rates. The fertility of the national herd is not something to be proud of, and it's something that we need to fix, and I personally would be happy to sacrifice some productive capacity in order to get greater fertility in my herd. Yeah, there may be a little bit of extra pressure next year, but farmers will see that gap and they will fill it pretty quickly, I would say.
Well, I see that they already are with the high BW empty cows being sold for megabucks at the moment. Hey, thank you guys so much for coming on. It's been fantastic talking to you, and a pleasure to see you both again as well. That wraps up our latest edition of Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Furrow. I'd like to thank again my guests Collier Isaacs and Wendy Clark. Thanks to you too for watching. Remember to check out my blog online at country99tv.co.nz. I love hearing from you, so keep it up. Catch you next week, and in the meantime, keep on talking straight.